Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into one of America's absolute most famous and, let's be real, most terrifying pieces of folklore. We're heading to 19th century Tennessee to look at the Bell Witch. It's this wild blend of historical records, oral tradition, and some seriously intense supernatural claims that just refuses to fade away, even after 200 years. To kick things off, we've got to ask a question that literally sounds like the plot of a modern horror movie. Can a supernatural entity actually commit murder? No, really, think about it. That exact question completely baffled the frontier community of Adams, Tennessee. We're not just talking about creepy things going bump in the night here. We are talking about an unseen force that supposedly took a man's life. Section 1. The Frontier Haunting begins. So let's map this out. The terror that hit the Bell family was incredibly concentrated. You have to picture the utter isolation of early American frontier life in Robertson County. Starting in 1817, this invisible entity just zeroes in on the family, specifically the patriarch, John Bell, and his daughter, Betsy. The whole ordeal hits this dark, chaotic crescendo in 1820 when John Bell mysteriously dies, and then the haunting mostly just subsides by 1821. It was this intense, terrifying 4-year window that permanently scarred American folklore. Now, what's genuinely wild about this is the sheer escalation of it all. We usually think of ghost stories as, subtle. A cold breeze here, a flickering candle there. But this was anything but subtle. It started off with some simple knocking and scratching sounds on the cabin walls, but it quickly exploded into violent poltergeist activity. And then it started talking. Witnesses actually reported having full-on conversations with this spirit. It could perfectly mimic people's voices and, get this, it even showed off clairvoyant knowledge, knowing about things happening miles and miles away. Section 2. Escalation and mysterious death. Right. So, the crucial detail here is that this unseen force didn't stay anonymous. It gave itself a very bizarre, very specific identity. It openly announced itself as Kate Batts Witch. According to the historical accounts, this thing claimed it was there specifically to avenge a local land dispute between John Bell and his neighbor, Kate Batts. So suddenly, it's not just a random haunting anymore, right? It becomes this deeply personal, hyper-localized vendetta playing out on the frontier. Which brings us right to the dark climax of the whole legend. In 1820, John Bell passed away under really mysterious circumstances. But the kicker? The thing that makes this totally unique in American folklore? The entity boldly took credit for the kill. It literally claimed that it had slipped poison to the patriarch. I mean, an invisible spirit claiming a successful assassination? That specific detail is exactly what elevates the Bell Witch from your average spooky tale to a legendary frontier mystery. Section 3. Historical and skeptical interpretations. Fast forward to today, and we look at this through two totally different lenses. On the one hand, you've got the supernatural folklore side of things, the avenging spirits, the clairvoyance, the physical attacks that completely terrified the locals. But on the flip side, skeptics totally strip those supernatural claims away. They argue that this was likely a massive, complex hoax. Maybe it was driven by family drama or angry neighbors. Others point to psychological suggestion, mass hysteria, or just frankly misinterpreting natural sounds when you're living in a super isolated, high-stress frontier environment. But honestly, beyond just trying to prove or debunk the ghost, historians love studying this narrative for a completely different reason. It is basically a perfect storm of early American life. It's this fascinating blend of rich oral tradition, deep religious tension, and social commentary. Life out on the 19th century frontier was brutal. It was harsh. And stories exactly like this one often served as a way for communities to process their own anxieties, neighborly disputes, and, well, the absolute sheer isolation of it all. Section 4. An enduring cultural legacy. The Bell Witch narrative is pretty much the absolute cornerstone of the Southern Gothic tradition. If you aren't familiar, this is a genre that just thrives on blending the macabre with real history and folklore. So the Bell Witch isn't just a campfire ghost story anymore. It's practically a foundational text for how the American South explores its own dark history. And the impact of that tradition? It is massive. This one piece of regional oral history just exploded into pop culture. It was heavily documented in 19th century writings, jumping straight from word of mouth into the actual historical record. And in our modern era, it's inspired countless novels, historical documentaries, and even major Hollywood movies like An American Haunting. It really goes to show just how deeply this specific story has gotten under the skin of the American consciousness. Plus, the legacy isn't just stuck in books or on screens. The actual physical site is still super active today. The Bell Witch Cave down in Adams, Tennessee, is a major tourist hotspot right now. It acts as this massive focal point for paranormal tourism and serious folklore study. Thousands of people literally travel there every single year just to step foot into the geography of America's definitive haunting. So, I'll leave you with this final kind of provocative thought to chew on. When we look back at the scratching on the walls, the disembodied voices, and the tragic death of John Bell, is the true ghost here simply the enduring power of American oral history? I mean, whether you walk away from this explainer convinced it was a murderous poltergeist, or maybe an elaborate frontier hoax, or even just a psychological phenomenon, one thing is absolutely undeniable. The most powerful force to ever emerge from Adams, Tennessee, is the immortal nature of a perfectly told legend. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the history around you.